Before beginning the story, I'd like to say a big thank you for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading alternate history-related stories every single day. If that sounds good, be sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a whole lot when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. The first time it happened, I was running on 4 hours of sleep and the kind of morning where the bathroom light feels like a personal attack. Tuesday, 6:15. Standing at the sink with toothpaste on the brush and my eyes not fully tracking yet, and I smiled at something, some passing thought, the specific involuntary upturn that happens before you're awake, enough to control your face. The reflection smiled first, not by much, not by enough that I could have measured it or proved it or described it to anyone in a way that wouldn't have sounded like the complaint of someone who needed more sleep. A fraction of a second, maybe less, the smile arriving in the mirror before it arrived on my face, and then my face catching up and both of us smiling at the same time, and the moment dissolving into the ordinary business of brushing teeth. I blinked and looked, and my reflection looked back with the patient accuracy of a reflection doing what reflections do. I decided I was tired and moved on. 3 days later, it happened again. Different smile, same morning context, same fraction of a second precedence, the reflection's expression arriving ahead of mine in a way that my brain flagged before I could explain it, and that my explanation machinery immediately went to work on. Tired eyes, the specific lag of a brain that processes the visual information from a mirror with a slight delay that I was misreading as the reflection being ahead rather than my perception being behind. I spent about 4 minutes constructing this explanation while finishing getting ready, and I believed it the way you believe something you've built rather than something you've found. The head tilt was harder to explain. A week after the second smile, midweek morning, I was looking at the mirror checking something about my collar, and I tilted my head to the left to get a better angle, and the reflection tilted right, which is correct, mirrors reverse, and I know this. But the tilt was wrong. Not wrong reversed, wrong delayed. The reflection's head beginning its tilt a half second after mine and completing it a half second after mine, and then holding the angle for a beat longer than I held it before returning to center. I stood very still at the mirror and watched the reflection stand very still, and I counted to 5 and looked away and looked back quickly. The reflection was looking at me, not looking at me in the sense that reflections are always oriented toward the observer, looking at me in the sense of a face that has its attention on you, that is regarding you with a quality that reflections don't have, because reflections don't regard anything. The distinction between a surface returning your image and a face looking at you is one you feel before you can articulate it, and what I felt standing at that mirror at 6:30 on a Wednesday morning was the second one. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel that evening. I told myself it was a temporary measure while I looked into it, which is a phrase I then spent a moment sitting with. I found the accounts online the way you find things when you search for something you're hoping to find a mundane explanation for, and find instead that other people have described what you're experiencing with enough specificity to confirm it's real and enough context to confirm it's not good. The accounts were scattered and inconsistent in their details and consistent in their shape. Something that occupies reflective surfaces, something that learns you by watching you through mirrors, studying your face and your expressions and your movements with the patience of something that has all the time it needs, and that the learning is in preparation for something rather than an end in itself. The something it was in preparation for was the account's most consistent element: replacement. The thing in the mirror, once its learning was complete, came through, and the person who'd been on the other side of the glass was no longer the majority of the situation. I read this and sat with it, and then I went back and thought about the pattern of the encounters: the Tuesday smile, the Friday smile, the Wednesday tilt, the held eye contact. And I thought about something one of the accounts had mentioned, almost in passing: the way the wrongness got worse each time it happened, that the escalation correlated with the frequency of the encounters, and that the frequency of the encounters was entirely determined by how often the person had been checking. I had been checking. Every morning since the first smile, every bathroom visit, I'd been checking the mirror with the focused attention of someone monitoring a situation, which meant I'd been looking at it more than I would have otherwise, which meant whatever was in it had been seen more than it would have otherwise. Looking at it fed it. Every time I'd registered the wrongness, every time I'd felt the specific jolt of something being off and looked again to confirm, I'd been giving it more of what it needed. The smile had been small, and the tilt had been bigger, and the held eye contact had been bigger still, and the escalation was exactly what you'd expect from something that was growing in proportion to how much attention I gave it. I stopped looking, or I tried to. I kept the towel on the bathroom mirror, and I used the front camera on my phone when I needed to check my appearance, and I kept my eyes down when I passed anything reflective. For 4 days this worked, or seemed to work. The absence of new incidents and the gradual settling of the specific high-frequency unease I'd been carrying since the Wednesday. On the 5th day, I caught it in the dark screen of my phone. Not my reflection. It was looking somewhere I wasn't. Looking at something to the left of where I was standing, with an expression that my face was not making, and when I looked up from the phone, there was nothing to the left of where I was standing. I looked back at the phone screen, and the reflection was looking at me again. Correct expression, correct orientation, the standard accuracy of a front camera doing what it was supposed to do. It had stopped waiting for me to look. It was active in the surfaces now, whether I was checking or not. I spent the 5th and 6th days trying to decide what to do with the information that the learning phase of whatever was in my mirrors was ending, that the thing wearing my face had been wearing it long enough, that the wearing had become fluent, and that fluency was the threshold before the next phase. I called nobody because I'd thought about how that conversation went, and it didn't go anywhere useful. I didn't go anywhere because the surfaces would follow me. I had understood that from the accounts, that the thing in the mirror had attached to me rather than to the physical mirror, and the physical mirror was just where I'd first noticed it. On the 7th night, I woke at 2 in the morning to light in the bathroom. Not the light I'd left on. The overhead was off, and I could see from the bed that the overhead was off. The light was coming from the mirror. I lay in the bed and looked at the light coming around the towel I'd put over the mirror. And I was very still, in the specific way of a person who has understood that stillness is one of the few options available to them. Then I got up, because lying still was not the same as being safe, and being in the bed was not materially better than being anywhere else, and the alternative to getting up was waiting for whatever was going to happen on its schedule rather than mine. I pulled the towel off the mirror. The reflection was at the glass from the other side, not mimicking my position, not arranged in the orientation of a reflection. Standing at the surface with one hand pressed flat against it, looking at me with my face arranged into an expression I'd never made, something patient and satisfied, and entirely without the capacity for the discomfort I was currently feeling. It had shed the mimicry completely. It was just there, in its own posture with my face, watching me watch it. The hand moved, pressing the glass from the other side, and the glass bowed outward slightly, a physical deformation that mirrors don't make, the surface yielding under a pressure applied from the wrong direction. I ran out of the bathroom and down the hallway, and the mirror broke behind me. Not the sound of something falling, the sound of something being pushed through from the other side. And I got to the kitchen and turned, and it was in the hallway. It was wearing me with the fluency of something that had been practicing for weeks. My height, my build, my face in the hallway dark with my eyes looking at me across the kitchen with the expression it had been wearing at the glass, patient and satisfied and ready. It moved the way I moved. It stood the way I stood. It had the specific postural habits that I'd never thought to notice about myself, and that it had apparently noticed with considerable care across 7 days of watching through every reflective surface I'd been near. I grabbed the nearest thing, which was the kettle, and I threw it, and it moved the way I would have moved if I'd seen something thrown at me, which meant it was fast in a way that used my own reflexes against me because my reflexes were what it had been studying. It closed the distance between us faster than I was ready for, and the physical confrontation that followed was the most disorienting experience of my life, because every move I made was a move it had seen me make, anticipated, accounted for, countered with the efficiency of something that had prepared specifically for me. I got to the front door. I don't remember every step between the kitchen and the door, but I got there, and I got it open, and I got through it, and I ran down 3 flights of stairs in bare feet and stood on the street at 2 in the morning in my pajamas, and did not look at any of the windows. I stayed at a friend's place for 3 days. I told a story about a plumbing emergency that my friend accepted because my friend is kind and didn't push. I went back to the apartment on the 4th day in daylight with my eyes down, and I packed what I needed, and I left, and I haven't been back. I'm in a new place now. Bare walls, no mirrors hung. The bathroom mirror covered from the first day. I use my phone camera, and I keep the brightness up so the screen doesn't go dark when I'm not actively using it. I'm writing this from the kitchen table, and the window above the sink is behind me, and I'm not going to look at it. There's something I should tell you about this morning. I got up at 6:15, which is my usual time, and I made coffee, and I was standing at the counter, and I smiled at something, some passing thought, the kind of involuntary upturn that happens before you're awake enough to control your face. I don't know if it happened before the smile on the dark surface of the coffee in the mug, or at the same time. I've been sitting here, trying to remember the sequence, And I can't. I'm going to keep not looking at surfaces that show my face, and I'm going to keep believing that the thing I fought in the hallway was left behind in the old apartment when I left. And I'm going to keep believing that what's in this mug right now is just coffee and just my reflection. I'm going to keep believing that. Someone has to. The following morning, coffee. The same brand, the same mug, the same 6:15. The kitchen is clean in the specific way of someone who keeps things orderly without having to think about it. In the bathroom, a new mirror. Hung yesterday, level and clean. A face in it, getting ready for the day. Collar checked, hair confirmed. The face smiles at something. A passing thought. The reflection smiles back at exactly the same moment. Perfect. Synchronized. The face in the mirror nods once, satisfied, and goes to make another cup of coffee.